Give me.
Started.
Okay, give me.
You want to share? Oh, yeah. Let me make you
Yeah.
the co-host.
Okay, here's the share screen. There you go. All right, so so as of the last review, these comments, there's some formatting comments and just some grammatical things, and like things like just move it there and move it here kind of thing under different sections. We have kind of an LGTM. It's not enough to merge the cap yet because we need an API review from Tim Hawkin, or any API reviewer for that matter. But this is where we are. I think this is good progress. We have acceptance of the overall design. We just need to work out the the details of the API. But even that, I think we should be good because a majority of the review that was done by Michelle was around the API. So I think we're in really good shape. I mean, we just had to keep it up all these weeks, just waiting for reviews. I think the biggest bottleneck that we face right now is API reviewers' time. I'm sure this is how it was when Guy was here regularly about 6 months ago, or longer than that. We're still kind of gated on that one slow step, but it's progress each time. Each time they do get a chance, we keep moving forward. So yeah, that's where we are. We've reached out. So I reached out to Tim Hawkin yesterday and asked Shing also, and she did the same. She reached out to Tim Hawkin. We just need to wait for him to take a look at it, and I'm going to keep pinging him. He has generally been very nice to us in the sense that he takes time out of his busy schedule to review this and spend considerable time on this. So I'm confident that he will take a look soon. Yeah, so I just wanted to give an update on where we are, and kind of open it up for people to ask questions. I know, Guy, you haven't been here for a long time. Would you like me to? I mean, I don't have a presentation or anything prepared for you to show you the current design. But if you have any questions from the cap, or if you want me to go over it, we can do that.
Well, for me, I mean, don't feel obligated to do anything specific, but I mean, if you want to cover anything that changed recently, I mean, I missed kind of a few months in between. So like the recent changes might be just something interesting to me to follow somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So the biggest change we actually went through was we got rid of this concept of bucket access requests and bucket access. So earlier
Hey,
we
Sid,
had.
do you want just to make this like in the view mode, since we're not really going through her comments, right? If you want to just show how the latest look like.
Yeah.
Kind of really
You mean
hard
the
to
file,
see
right?
when there are so many comments.
Yeah.
You mean this file, right? That's what
Yeah,
you mean.
just like view, yeah, next to viewed, yeah, read me next to viewed. If you click that
View
the
file.
box, yeah, that way you can actually see a nice document.
Right. Okay, so yeah, let's go to the API reference. All right, the bucket is as it always was, Guy. Nothing has changed on that front. The way it's orchestrated, everything is the same. We just started calling it existing bucket ID in case you're importing a bucket instead of implying it. If you're importing a bucket, just put it in there. A bucket created outside of Cozy. So then we wanted to be more.
That's the provider, the provider's reference, something like that.
Yeah, it's on the provider side. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we wanted to be more congruent with persistent volume claims and persistent volumes because it's just a concept and wording that people understand in the Kubernetes community. So we renamed bucket request to bucket claim, a claim for a bucket. But essentially, it's the same thing. It is exactly the same as it was before, um, other than the name change in this. Bucket class remains the same. Okay, here's where the biggest change was. So one of the things we were doing, we had the concept of a bucket access request, which is a request to gain access to a particular bucket, and the result of requesting access to the bucket would be the creation of an actual cluster scope bucket access object. So bucket access request ended up creating bucket access, just like bucket request ended up creating bucket earlier. We had that symmetry between buckets and bucket access before. Um, but there was really no need to have that cluster scope resource, since access is per pod, as in anyone who um, within a namespace, if you um, gave access to a particular pod, pretty much all the pods in that namespace can get access to the same secret. So
Mhm.
it's already when you give access to a pod, you're really, or when you create a bucket access, the resource, you're really opening it up to the whole namespace. um, and there is, I mean, it's a security flaw to have it be accessible from anywhere else. um, there
So
was
it more
just
resembles a secret today. So bucket access is similar to a secret where I created inside the namespace
right.
itself, and then
Yeah,
it doesn't contain the actual credentials, or does it? Or
it
does
won't.
it just? It
Yeah,
won't.
it just refers to a secret.
It refers to a secret. Okay.
Hmm.
And
So
who
we,
populates that? I mean, that's Cozy to populate everything for
yeah,
the. I see.
yeah,
Okay.
Cozy populates all of this. um, and also that way we also get rid of that reference from the cluster scope resource to namespace scope resource, which was something we were dealing with earlier, where the bucket access was pointing back to the bucket access request. um, but by simplifying this, it's just more intuitive. It fits in the model better. mm,
And
we all
the pod will reference the bucket access.
right,
Okay.
eventually, yeah.
And then is there also explicit reference between the pod and the secret, or is that behind the scenes?
Right now it is explicit.
Mhm.
But eventually, when we do get to make changes in the pod spec, whenever that is, we will do it behind the scenes.
Okay, so right now I would put a pod spec, and I would essentially. So what is the references from the pod spec? I mean, do I reference the bucket access as well, or just the secret?
So neither, actually. So you would reference, so you would create a projected volume, which refers to which refers to the secret, right? So you would refer to the secret in the projected volume. The secret that is pointed to here, credential secret name.
Hmm. Okay, so
Yeah,
this is sort of a request for a secret, and then I just refer to the secret from my pod.
right,
Okay.
right. And the contents of the secret are in an API called bucket info. We'll go over that. We also introduced IAM based. Oh, we need to fix this. IAM based authentication. So for IAM based access, what needs to be done is a particular service account token needs to be associated with a backend, as in like a cloud service account.
Mhm.
So any pod that is mounted with that service account token will be able to authenticate itself as that cloud account whenever it talks to a cloud API. So if you're on GKE and you want to authenticate yourself as a user with access to a particular bucket, all you have to do is put that service account token in there. All the clients for all the major cloud providers already support this method of authenticating. where if you're in a particular cloud running in GKE, it looks for a service account to see if it can, to see if it is authorized to do more
You
stuff
mean
than just.
you mean a cloud service account or a Kubernetes service account in the namespace?
So a Kubernetes service account gets associated with the cloud service account. So if you just use your Kubernetes service account as the key, as the secret key, you would get to authenticate yourself as a cloud service account.
Okay, and so how does it work? When from API perspective, I would create this bucket access,
Right.
reference a service account name from my
Yep.
namespace,
Right.
and what is the result? What does Cozy hook me up with? It doesn't provide a secret then, right? Or does it?
So yeah. So it's, you still have to specify the secret, because the secret is here in the credential secret name, because that's
Mhm.
how that's where we mount the bucket info object. And the bucket info.json file has information about the bucket name, the backend name, authentication method, and such. And it has information for
IAM as well.
yeah, IAM as well, like where the token is and all that.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
so client can read that, open up the token, and use it to talk to the backend.
Okay. Okay, and that's optional for cases. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've also added, I'll go over it. And then there's the class, which is same as always. Bucket info. This is the bucket info field we're talking about. Here we have the authentication type added now in order to represent what kind of authentication we're doing. So we have key-based authentication, which is access key, secret key-based, and IAM, where the token is mounted. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
actually
so
all.
let, so let me see that I understand the new, like this new authentication scheme now, that
Mm-hmm.
uh, a bucket claim and bucket will handle the provisioning workflows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I want to use brownfield cases, I would import using that existing bucket ID,
Right.
right? That's how I would claim an existing bucket, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Okay, and then so for every bucket that I actually want to refer from Kubernetes, I have to either import a bucket with existing bucket ID or claim a new bucket, basically, and then I get a
Yep.
bucket claim,
Right.
right? And that's the beginning for anything that I do in Cozy, and then that bucket access will refer to the claim always, right?
Yep.
So I always have to refer to a claim, whatever
Yep.
I do,
Yep.
and um, and then
The
I
secret
see
will
the
get mounted in
bucket.
the pod. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So first, I see the bucket access class name. Is this still in effect?
Yeah, the bucket access class name is still in effect in case you
Okay.
want to specify what kind of um,
Authentication
what are the
type.
parameters. Yeah, what kind of parameters
Parameters.
you want to give. Yeah.
Hmm.
Eventually the plan is to make parameters a typed field, but for now this is what we have. um, yeah.
Okay, so let me finish up this thought. Then I create a bucket access, and either I just specify a secret name which I want to use to mount the credentials back to my pods,
Mm-hmm.
or I specify the service account name and a secret. And I mean, it's a secret anyway, but the service account will allow me to, instead of getting the authentication as access key secret key, I would just get an ACK saying, okay, you can,
Use
it's
service account
it's
account.
been set up for you so
Mhm.
that this service account can use this bucket, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And what is and everything is per namespace now, right? So I cannot
Yeah.
I cannot create any references between namespaces between these things.
Between accesses, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
access and the bucket claim. But
Yep.
then what is the relation between, so how do I is there any authentication, not authorization model for which existing buckets I can import, or I can import anything by, from Cozy's perspective? Is there any?
Yeah. So, so right now there is no, you don't prevent who can refer to what bucket, but there are two different efforts that are going on for this kind of authorization. Let me actually pull up something. So we had written down in our docs. I'm also trying to fully remember that. It's in
the Cozy Slack.
Yeah, this one. Okay, so where is this? So we did bucket prefix, bucket CRD. Yes. All right. So in December or something, we did this. In January, we were having the discussion about. Oh yeah. Yeah. So this is the discussion. So here it is. So the discussion was. So first we had a namespace selector based approach. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
remember that still. Yeah,
mhm.
I was there.
Oh yeah. So after that, we talked about this thing saying, at this point, we don't need to do self-service bucket sharing without admin intervention. Admin can always be involved in bucket sharing at this point. The idea behind that was an admin would have to tell the user, here's the name of the bucket that you want to use. Without that, the user need not know what buckets exist, and there doesn't have to be a strong um, authorization system for authorizing which bucket can be used by which namespace. But eventually, there's two different options we can use to do the authorization. One is regular Kubernetes cluster roles and cluster role bindings. Now they're granular enough to say which service account can access which resource. Before, the issue we saw was, particular service account could be restricted only to a particular resource type. So you could say a service account can list
All buckets,
secrets
yeah.
or all buckets, but now you can do at the bucket level of granularity. So because of that, we don't have to, we can just rely on Kubernetes infrastructure to do that.
Mhm.
And we just we've put it behind alpha, as in, like, we'll get into it after alpha, simply to make things simpler and get it through.
Oh, it makes sense. So what you're saying is that maybe that's something I missed. The existing bucket ID, is that the bucket name, like the cluster scoped bucket name, or is it completely external identifier? What type of
um
identifier is that?
yeah. So let's say you have it can be the bucket name. So it can be the bucket name. It's the ID of the bucket when the bucket is imported, when it was created outside of Cozy. And this ID could be a full URL. This is what is used when making gRPC calls to the backend.
Right. So the driver of that specific, the specific driver will accept this identifier and will resolve it, right?
Right.
Okay. But then, is there any model similar to how PVCs work with PV, that you can connect the PVC to an existing PV in the cluster?
So we don't have the concept of the strong binding, right? Like between PVC and PV.
Okay.
Because PV Cs are mostly read-write ones. Read-write many is a rare case. Um,
Mhm.
and so the primary model in which PVC PV works is one-to-one. You don't have many to one, even though it's like you can't bind many PVCs to the same PV. Um,
Mhm.
in buckets, it's different in the sense that multiple bucket claims can. So we don't call it binding. That's what I'm trying to say. Multiple bucket claims can claim a single bucket.
Is there any link to the bucket, to the cluster scope bucket from the bucket claim at all? I didn't see it, but
So
is there a link?
from the bucket claim to the bucket,
Yeah.
yeah,
This one. Okay.
yeah,
So as the creator of a bucket claim, I can put a bucket name here as well.
yeah, yeah. This is where you
Okay.
put the bucket name. So you either create the bucket or you put the name of the bucket that you want to claim.
And okay, and if I don't put anything, it means I want something new, right?
You want to create one,
Uh,
yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Hey,
I see.
Sid,
I
do
see the
we
point.
do
Mhm.
any validation about the existing bucket name, or just we assume users right?
Right. So it's like service selectors. If you get it wrong, it just we can throw a message after, but not while
Well, it's
it
been
is
created.
created.
Okay, so that's
Right.
more like, I think that's more like a PV. That's how it handles the, if you give a warning handle, there's no validation for the
Right.
PV actually. Yeah, we do the validation for snapshot. Yeah,
Hmm.
so
Oh,
So the
really?
bucket itself
yeah.
might be created after the bucket claim in some aspect, right? Or
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You could specify it, and wait for the bucket to be created, and only then you can use it somewhere.
mhm. So there is some status, right? I see the bucket ready
Mhm.
later on, and yeah, okay. And the bucket name is like copied back in.
Right. And also, if you're creating a new bucket, that's where you'd find the name.
Yeah, of course. Okay, I see.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so basically this is how it's not binding, but I connect to an existing and one, and you're saying that the RBAC will, the fine grain RBAC will allow to put
Right.
some restrictions over what is possible for some namespace
Hmm.
to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. But what is the when you
Some
say
user to do. Some user. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, so I remember with RBAC there are options of use, right? Is that the case that you wanted to, when RBAC you have a, I forgot how this is I mean how it's specified exactly, but there's some use colon something. Remember, you know that
I think
in
I know what
RBAC?
you mean. Yeah, we'll have to look it up. I don't even know where to start actually.
No, so leave
Mhm.
it, leave that one.
Okay.
I don't want
Okay.
to dive into it, but what
Mhm.
happens? I mean, naturally, if I just put an existing bucket name, I guess it. Does it
Yeah, it
mean that
works.
it
It'll
works?
work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 There's no restriction as of now.
So by default, there's no restrictions, but the
Mhm.
administrator can put restrictions if
Right.
that would. Okay. We might need to think about just what the default is. The default is no restrictions, or the default is completely restricted and then
It's like
released.
PVCs and PVs, right? PVs by default have no restriction.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already restricted in the sense it's a cluster scope resource. So people who shouldn't know about won't know about it. The bucket names that are generated by Cozy are entirely UUID based, so it's not possible to guess.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay,
so
no,
I
fair
don't. Yeah.
enough. I don't think it's a huge concern, given that there is some mechanism to prevent it. If
Mhm.
if there's some cluster that is very concerned about multi-tenancy
Right.
this way. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so first of all, I think the changes are make a lot of sense. We had a lot of issues with all these structures, and I think
Right.
it does make a lot of sense to me. I still need to digest everything, but it does seem to fit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
we
gonna
had.
say. Please go ahead.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, we had, if you remember, we had the similar model we called the OBC within the
Red Hat.
Star
Yeah.
with Red Hat, and it's still being used. And to be honest, it's doing a fine work for what it's worth. It's not that bad. I mean, it's it is modeled similar, right, with a claim and it was called OBC and OB, right, to match the PVC PV, but the access thing was not there at all. It was all completely merged into the same thing. So the bucket claim also contained like the secret reference, but it was implicit. But anyway, and
Makes
here
sense. Yeah.
it's separate, which makes better.
Mostly
Perhaps
because
better.
the life cycles are not the same. Creating bucket and using a bucket are different from creating access and deleting access.
Yeah,
So
and I think that was one of the things that when we started talking about Cozy, I think we saw that the access provision, like provisioning credentials, should be some other flow with more attention to it. So yeah, okay,
right,
that makes sense to me.
right, right. Yeah. So that's where we are. Um, it's actually good for the others, for me also, to kind of go over this once in a while, I think. So I'm actually glad we went over this just now.
Did you
Yeah.
get
Other than that,
any questions from Tim? You said that
not
you're
yet.
waiting for.
So
Okay.
we reached out to him yesterday. Generally, give it a day or two before pinging him again. On Fridays, I think, Shane, correct me if I'm wrong. It's fair to say Tim was mostly free on Fridays to look at this, right?
Tim, I don't know about his schedule. So you could
Okay.
ping him like once a day. I think it should be fine.
Okay. Okay. Michelle, I know, is going to look at it on Friday, tomorrow. She seems to be free mostly on Fridays. So
Okay.
yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah.
Can I
So
ask something else?
yeah. Go ahead, please.
What will be the process once you get the the act from Tim and merge the cap? I mean, once the cap is
Code,
merged, what do you want
code.
to do there?
So there's two things. One is get the project up and running with the new design. The reason we haven't pushed too much on that is because the design keeps changing, and we just wanted to wait until it's solidified. The basics are already in there. So get it working and get the docs to a point where people can start writing drivers against it. That's going to
So you
be the
need
key.
to update. Everything is stale, right? A little bit docs
Yep.
and code at this point
Yeah.
from the change from these changes, of course, right?
hmm And
Okay.
once we do that, once we have, I also want to publish a blog after we go alpha. So once we do all this, I know Minio will push behind it. I'm sure other companies that are participating will publish their own blogs, or we can all write one together. At the end of that, we'll have more people participating, and we'll get more user requests, feature requests, and we'll go that way. Once we have docs, and once we have alpha and all that.
And once the cap is merged, is alpha.
Yeah, it's alpha.
Yeah, but we need to, I think it's going to be like 1.25, like late in 1.24 release cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the long-term plan. So yeah, we're just waiting for this, and I think even Tim's review won't take very long this time. We have a sound API. We have one person saying looks good to me. All that helps. It's much more than we had before, and also we have internal consensus. We all agree on what this should be. So it's positive overall. It's further than we've ever gotten before, and yeah, we should be in much better position this time.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Sounds good. And now I remember I referred to this, I think, from the KCP KCP forum or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. There was some discussions about storage for KCP. I don't know if anybody from SIG storage
Yep.
was involved, but from our teams in Red Hat, there were a few discussions about it. So I don't know if Cozy can be relevant for that. I mean, for their time frame, because they are working on their own, timelines. But I think I just mentioned it to them at some point. Okay, so I don't have anything to add. So
Okay, makes sense. But also this is a valid comment actually. I can see that being very useful. Yeah, even in Minio, we do have multi-cluster deployments now. So yeah, being Minio customers locations, and something like this would especially if you're doing a cross cluster deployment, yeah, this would be very useful. Yeah, I just noticed that comment. Anyway, so that's that's where we are, and yeah, thanks for coming back. And
I'm sorry, what
we
is
have
this one? I haven't.
oh, he's saying that so right now allow topologies is on the cluster itself. In the storage class that you specify allow topologies, it's to say the storage class can schedule volumes on these nodes, and it's kind of a label for a node. um, Guy mentioned that it can be labels across clusters, so you can use it to say this pod goes, or the volumes that are requested goes to cluster 1 or cluster 2 based on the storage class, instead of having to. Right now the only way you can do it is by having two different Kubernetes, or
they asked
using your own system.
us. They asked us a little bit about it, about things that can happen there, and they also said that there is a lot of work from KCP on what they call location API or something like that. I saw like a very big discussion about that, and it's not specific to Cozy at all. It's related to any resource for KCP. So it seems like they are developing right now this notion of location for KCP, and this comment was before they even referenced it for us. Just looking at their questions about what can be done in storage in these in this scheme of KCP. So I just mentioned that a few options that I knew back then, but they are still working on something new on that sense. The location API, I think I can find it somewhere in the KCP prototype channel, I think.
So tell me again, KCP is it like the crossplane thing?
It's there are some similarities, of course, because there in some sense they require you to expose APIs under like a new CRD, right? So if you want to expose something at the top level, at the KCP level, you need to define it a new API for it, basically. So let's say you want to create something called, just imagining, right? But a bucket, right, from KCP level, then you probably have you'd have a CRD representing a bucket in KCP level, and then this would end up as creating things on the specific cluster that it gets provisioned on. So Cozy will be needed on the clusters itself, on the leaf clusters, right, on the actual clusters, compute clusters they call it sometimes, I think. But there is still some extraction of an API that you need to go through if you want KCP to be able to provision it. And the reason is because they add more configurations for it, like the location APIs that they wanted to
I see.
standardize, things like that.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah. So
It's pretty much in the works. So there are a lot of things happening. I don't know all the details. I am pretty new to that, but I started to listen to their content from recent discussions.
Yeah, one thing I keep noticing is multi-cluster deployments are becoming more common. Even across geographical regions, we see that in our customer locations. And also when I say multi-cluster, they also do multi-cloud, multi-cluster, so different infrastructures,
Yeah.
one Kubernetes control plane. So things like this don't exist today, but customers are asking for it. So I can see this being very useful.
Yeah, and I think storage for them is also like they haven't even considered it as far as I heard in the last 2-3 weeks. They were asking a lot of questions. What can be done? What should be done? What kind of things happen there? I don't know if anybody, I didn't see anybody specific from SIG storage involved in the KCP prototype work, but maybe I missed it.
Well, I got to know about this from the context of people using object storage across clusters. I think they should be focused on, like, in the sense that I think in such scenarios, the reason people from our customers are running into this issue is because with data, especially if it's mission critical data, people don't put it in one cloud at the risk of losing it or having downtime if the cloud goes down, which has happened many times. So they do constant replication, like it's asynchronous, but it's constantly any data you write into, say, Minio gets backed up to AWS or GKS or Azure. So they want a single control plane for all this, and object storage fits in here, or is like the first use case for it, mostly because of the nature of object storage itself, where it's always over the network. So it makes sense to replicate it across over the network, and also um, it's not tied to, like all the clouds talk S3 API, GKE talks S3, Azure talks S3. So everyone's kind of standardized on the S3 API. So multi-cluster storage, one of the first use cases, to me it seems like, is object storage, because probably because of where I'm coming from, what I see in the customers here, but it's a solid use case regardless.
I think still, I mean, they will require file system block, I mean, PVs.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But and that was one of the comments that you showed before that I mentioned,
Right.
also the vol-sync option. I mean, it doesn't have to be the specific project, but that's a project we were involved in, so I could reference it. That's an operator, like some controller that you could you could expose as an API, which provides you with replication from a PV to remote S3, for example, right? So things like that could be involved in that multi-cloud. Like you say, you need some form of setting it up, control plane
Right.
APIs that make sense to deploy on your clusters. So you need the operators, those controls, to be available on your clusters, on your compute clusters, then, and then some APIs that the control plane can push down to those clusters, and they make sense, right? So there's a lot of things moving on here
Sure.
in
Yeah.
order to make it work. I don't know how long it will take, but what I wanted was to just raise make some connections between these works.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. No, I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, and thanks for the introduction, because I had seen this project before, but I didn't know the direction it was heading. So this is good to know.
Cool.
Yeah, that's about it. We have 9 minutes left. We Unless there's any other questions, we'll meet again next week. I'll keep it up. I'll keep following up with Tim and try to get an API review. I'll also try to ask Michelle to take a look, and she wanted minor changes to the wording and everything. I'll make sure she gives a LGTM too. Yeah, that's all is there for now. The design, the discussion on design has not changed much. We're all in agreement with what we decided a few weeks back, um, and we're going to keep it that way for now. Um, and based on the comments from Tim, hopefully we have something by next week. I'm sure new discussions will pop up. So yeah, let's take it from there. That's all for now.
Hey, Sid, next week I'll be traveling, so I won't be able
Okay.
to join the meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I
It's if
should we
you,
cancel it, or should I?
it's up to you. If you want to, you can keep it. It's just
Okay.
you won't be able to record unless if you get someone like Michelle to join, then
Okay.
she can help
Okay.
with the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have it then in that case. And Michelle doesn't have to join. If she joins, it's good, we can record it. If not, we'll just take notes.
Okay, yeah. Then I think it's just another thing is you can't share screen, but you can just give people link. Then you can just look at the document yourself and talk. Yeah, I think that should be
Sure.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, we can work with that. That's
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Shing. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Talk to you all next week. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.